So good morning everyone. Welcome to our press event today regarding the launch of Fraud Prevention Month. I'm Sergeant Nick Wilshire of the Calgary Police Service in the Crime Prevention team. We kick off Fraud Prevention Month here in Calgary, and we have lots of messages. We have lots of our partners here with us. We have Calgary Police Service. We also have with us the Better Business Bureau. We also have the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. We have the Real Estate Council of Alberta and Crime Stoppers Association, the RCMP, and also the Alberta Services Commission with us that will be able to give information about fraud. Fraud is something that impacts a lot of people throughout Alberta, and certainly here within Calgary. And it's something that sometimes can go unreported because people feel embarrassed. They feel embarrassed about the mistake that they've made. And what we are trying to emphasize throughout Fraud Prevention Month is not only making people aware of the different frauds that are happening in and around Alberta and in Calgary, but also that you're not alone. You can report these things to us, and also we will give you information that will equip you to be better able to stop yourself becoming a victim of fraud. Fraud is something that happens in lots of different ways. It's come a long way from a letter that you may have received in the post asking you to invest in some kind of business. And now it's something that bombards us either on the internet, through our emails, through our text messaging, and it just comes in lots of different forms. And so we gather with all of the experts that are here to really emphasize things that you can do. We don't want people to be afraid of crime. We want people to have the knowledge so that they can tackle it, be more aware, and also be more aware of how they can actually stop themselves becoming a victim of fraud. All of our partners here will be providing information not only in this press conference but throughout the month, and we encourage people to look on the Calgary Police Service website and also all these different associations. We share lots of information, and it's through knowledge that you'll be able to prepare yourselves and be better able to prevent from being a victim of fraud. I'd like to pass on now from myself on to Mary O'Sullivan Anderson, the President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mary O'Sullivan Anderson, M-A-R-Y, O'Sullivan, O''S-U-L-L-I-V-A-N, Anderson, A-N-D-E-R-S-E-N. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mary O'Sullivan Anderson, President and CEO of BBB serving Alberta and East Kootenay. I am pleased to be here on behalf of the Better Business Bureau alongside of our partners in Fraud Prevention Month, including the Calgary Police, RCMP, and many others. Today also marks the release of the Better Business Bureau's Scam Tracker Risk Report. BBB has been publishing this report on an annual basis since 2016. The most recent report underscores that online fraudsters can be highly organized crime groups that are stealing hundreds of millions of dollars from Canadians every year. This is most often happening through online investment cryptocurrency scams, with the scammers posing as potential romantic partners or friends. Whether it's romance or a friendship, the scenario is always similar. The fraudsters make initial contact through text, email, social media, or dating sites. Once trust is established, the scammer tells the target about an incredible investment opportunity. Typically, a small amount of money may be invested into a cryptocurrency account. It appears to grow, and then the scam escalates very quickly. Of course, the person online is a criminal. There is no romance, there is no friendship, and the account that the victim believes is legitimate is fake. The money is gone. Sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. In 2023, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre estimated that Canadians lost more than $300 million in cryptocurrency and investment scams. The numbers are staggering. BBB research indicates that this figure is likely much higher, with approximately only 5% of scams actually being reported to local authorities. I'd like to make one more point about fraud. There are monetary losses, yes, but perhaps the most important and most devastating is how the victim feels. There is shame, there is embarrassment, and it impacts our local communities. These are real people being harmed. This is not just stats. These are people in our community, and some of these people may never recover from the impact. Please take part in the events during Fraud Prevention Month. Take the opportunity to educate and inform yourself or loved ones. Thank you very much.
Now have the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners.
Good morning. Kyle Shu with the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, Calgary chapter. That's KYLESCHUH. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. My name, like I said, is Kyle Shu, and I'm pleased to be here on behalf of the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, Calgary chapter. ACFE Calgary belongs to the world's largest anti-fraud organization and is a premier provider of anti-fraud training. ACFE Calgary seeks to partner with agencies and organizations in enhancing fraud awareness in our community and to develop the skills of local anti-fraud professionals in combating all forms of fraud. Fraud Prevention Month is important in our community. It's when multiple organizations, law enforcement, regulators, nonprofits, and others come together to demonstrate our continued commitment to fighting fraud. Calgarians, unfortunately, are not immune to the harms done by fraudsters. At ACFE Calgary, we hear from our members and our speakers at our events, and it's clear that fraud is on the rise. Some of the latest schemes, for example, can include or have included romance and investment scams. In these types of scenarios, fraudsters might build trust and develop a personal connection with the victim, eventually taking advantage of the victim's good nature. The fraudster might create a fictional crisis or direct the victim to a seemingly lucrative opportunity, but the deception results in the loss of the victim's funds. And those losses have a heartbreaking real-world impact on the victims and their families. And these are real people, and they aren't just numbers. At ACFE Calgary, we believe that public awareness and professional skill building are critical in creating a defense against those that seek to deceive and deprive members of our community through fraudulent actions. Some fraud schemes can be very sophisticated or involve complex organizational structures. That's why it's so important for us to come together in venues like this. That's why when it comes to combating fraud, it really does take a network to defeat a network. We all play a critical role. Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to my friends at RCMP.
Thank you. Excuse me, snow mold is killing me today. I came prepared. Good morning, my name is Janice Harrington, JANICE, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Real Estate Council of Alberta, also known as RCMP. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with all of you today. RCMP is grateful to be part of the Fraud Prevention Month campaign. While nearly everyone buys and sells, mortgages, or rents a home, not everyone is aware of what RCMP is and what we do. So RCMP is the regulator for real estate professionals, setting, regulating, and enforcing standards for licensees in the industry. We exist to protect consumers from fraud, misconduct, and unlicensed activity in the real estate industry. Our job is to ensure only qualified, ethical, and knowledgeable professionals are licensed to work in the industry across the province. A home, where we live, is one of the most important decisions we make in our lives. Unfortunately, it's also a place where some are willing to take advantage. However, the more you know and understand, the less likely you are to fall victim to common fraud schemes. I know many of us have read the headlines about some of the common fraud activities that occur in real estate transactions, but there are some common warning signs you should watch for. For example, being asked to provide false information on mortgage applications, too good to be true rental deals, always visit the property before making any payment. Contracts that may seem unclear or incomplete, always read and verify before signing, and even better, review with someone you trust. And if something feels off, investigate further, trust your instincts, and contact RCAC because we can help. Consumers, for example, can always use RCA's online search tool at rca.ca to verify that the real estate professionals they're working with hold valid licenses. If a consumer has concerns about a transaction, RCA also provides transparent complaint processes to investigate misconduct. We hold our licensees accountable, and we implement disciplinary actions as necessary to uphold the public trust. During Fraud Prevention Month, RCA will also help consumers learn to recognize about red flags in real estate transactions and raise awareness about the resources we offer to Alberta consumers. If any part of a real estate deal is unclear or an offer seems suspicious, you can contact us. We can help you understand, and we're here to protect you. As I said, the first place to go is rca.ca to use our licensee search tool. And on the website, we also offer access to free fraud prevention consumer resources. I want to thank the CPS and all the other partners involved in Fraud Prevention Month, and we're honored to work with you in keeping Albertans safe. Thanks very much.
Good morning. My name's David King. I'm director of Calgary Crime Stoppers Association, one of the directors. David is D-A-V-I-D. King is K-I-N-G. Pretty easy. And I wanted to thank CPS for organizing this today. CPS is a critical partner for us at Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers is a not-for-profit, volunteer-based organization. We've been around since 1983. We have a fairly strong brand throughout Canada and the world, for that matter, starting way back in the 70s. We look at helping the community with creating safe environment, and we come up with ways to assist that by informing individuals about Crime Stoppers. And one of the things we do is we use content. One of the contents is fraud prevention. So over the course of the last six months to a year, we've organized sessions at seniors' homes, YMCAs, other places like that, to partnering with our CPS folks to make sure that folks know about fraud. And we bring in partners, financial institutions that have the knowledge, the experience, and unfortunately have the issues of fraud and having to deal with the public, people losing money. We hear stories all the time about seniors that have lost money, and we're there to help them. So there's a way to do that. There's a way to help with that prevention. So we use the Calgary Crime Stopper brand to assist with that. Now, of course, over the course of the last little while, just some statistics. Last year, there was 5,900 tips received into Crime Stoppers Calgary alone. And of that, there was 75 arrests, 101 cases cleared, 694 cases or charges were laid. Now, this is relating to all types of crimes, but at the same time, we try to get out there and get into the community. So again, wanted to thank CPS. They're a huge sponsor of ours and help us with processing the tips. And thanks to organization and the folks that have put together this Fraud Prevention Month. Thank you. Next up, my friend RCMP.
Good morning. Thanks for having me today. I'm Inspector John Lamming. That's John Lamming, and I'm the officer in charge of the Financial Integrity and Cybercrime teams, including the Provincial Financial Crime Team in Edmonton, Alberta. That's with the Northwest Region Federal Policing for Alberta. As we recognize Fraud Prevention Month, I wanted to really highlight the critical role that the public awareness plays in protecting individuals, businesses, and communities from fraud. Fraud continues to evolve, with criminals using increasingly sophisticated tactics and technology to exploit people's trust and their financial security. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre reported more than $600 million was lost last year from fraud alone. And I would argue that's a vast understatement of what actually was lost. Awareness is ours and your first line of defense. The more informed people are about common scams, the harder it becomes for fraudsters to succeed. Many of these scams, as some of our partners already articulated, they prey on your fear, urgency, misinformation, whether through phone calls, emails, social media, text messages. Education can help individuals in our communities recognize red flags and take action before becoming victims. Through awareness campaigns, such as Fraud Prevention Month, the RCMP is able to work hand in hand with our provincial, municipal, and federal partners to provide valuable resources that help people stay vigilant and informed. We all have a role to play in fraud prevention. Staying informed, questioning suspicious requests, and educating others can help stop scams before they cause harm. I often advocate the term stranger danger, which we teach our kids, right? If it looks strange, if you don't know it, ask questions. On behalf of the RCMP, I encourage the public to use fraud prevention resources. Go to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre website, attend awareness sessions, and spread the message within your families and communities. By working together, both in our communities, the public, Canadians, the partners that you see here today, we can build a safer and more resilient, more fraud-resilient society. If you believe you are a victim of fraud, please report it to your local police service, whether it's in Calgary or an RCMP detachment. And you can also reach out to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre at 1-888-495-8501. Thank you.
That's right. I do. I'll say something. Hillary McMeekin, that's Hilary, McMeekin, MCMEEKIN. I'm the Director of Communications and Investor Education with the Alberta Securities Commission. The Alberta Securities Commission is the regulator entrusted with administering and enforcing securities laws, or investment laws. And we also have a mandate of investor protection. Unfortunately, investment fraud has grown exponentially. It is the single biggest source of fraud currently today. As my colleagues just mentioned, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre reported $310 million was lost to investment fraud alone in 2024. That's significant. We are so proud to be here with all of the partners today, and we really want Albertans to stop and take a moment and think about things before they click that button. Unfortunately, fraudsters, they find us everywhere. WhatsApp channels, our text messages, our social media platforms. Everywhere we go, unfortunately, they're the professionals that find us. And we really can be, unfortunately, scammed. So many of us think, I will never get scammed, and yet we do. We are. And that's why we're all here today, because we believe that Albertans can protect themselves. The more information they have at their fingertips, the more they pause and think about that investment opportunity and think about whether it fits for them. Unfortunately, fraudsters like to really pressure hard. That's get in now. This is your chance. Make a quick buck. None of that is real. Legitimate investment opportunities, you always have time to do your research and make sure it's right for you. So don't ever think that that high pressure sales tactic is right for you. You can always pause and think about it. Checkfirst.ca is a resource available to people 24/7. Lots of information about investments, how to make investments, what to think about when you're considering making investments, and the red flags to protect you from investment fraud. We're so proud to be here with all the partners today. We work throughout the year, but really this month is important because we want Albertans to be informed and to know how to protect themselves, because unfortunately too many of us are falling victim to the fraudsters out there today. So with that, I'll pause. Does anyone have questions for my fabulous colleagues who are lined in the dark? Okay. Come on.
Tell me why I shouldn't be ashamed.
Because you're not alone. That's the biggest thing. You're not in isolation. It's not because you were gullible or stupid or any of those things. You saw something and they draw you in. They work on building either that relationship with you so you feel that trust and you're drawn in, because all of us are just regular human beings that want to be nice to people, and that's what they rely on. So they'll use that build-up of friendship, or they'll cause you to feel that it's something you've got to do urgently. We certainly see that when they try and tell you that you've got a loved one that needs some assistance in some way, and that you've got to act now, and if you don't act now, well, I can tell you, if that person is anywhere within Canada, even if they're in police custody, they're at no harm of anything. Maybe a bad dry cheese and tomato sandwich is the worst they'll probably face if they are. But you have time to make those inquiries. We have lots of people that call us and ask us about that they've received information that we've got one of their loved ones, and we will say, no, we don't. And that's what we say. Always rely on your instincts. You will know if something is off, and you always have time. No matter how much they pressure you that you must act now or something drastic is going to happen. No, it's not. You have time to act, and you have time to make those calls. And that's really, it's when people come together, as we do lots of presentations to lots of different groups, some people will say, oh yeah, I got that. And people share their stories. And when people share their stories and how they overcame it, gives everybody else a lot of strength. And that's really why we want everybody to hear lots of different messages, not just from the police, but lots of people who are involved, to give them that idea. Talk about it. Don't be ashamed of it, but bring it to people's attention, because you can actually help prevent somebody else from being scammed.
So I've been scammed, and I'm thinking there's no way they're going to get my money back because this person's probably halfway across the world. What would you say?
I would have to say that is true. As technology has advanced, I'm sure those within that kind of side of it will tell you how quickly it can actually pass. It's probably in Canada less than 30 seconds.
So do I have a chance of getting my money back? What are my chances?
I would say they're very low. That is the unfortunate thing about it. I'm not saying it won't happen, but it is very low.
Better Business Bureau.
Okay.
Thanks, Sergeant. You had some kind of meter you were saying that you're tracking, or a trackometer or some. Explain that to me.
Yeah, BBB releases our risk index report. We've been doing it since 2016. It's an annual report, and we look at susceptibility, exposure, and monetary losses in order to come up with our risk index. We come up with our top 10, and while cryptocurrency and investment is number 1, in second place is employment, and in third place is home improvement. So there are a number of scams and a number of opportunities that we continue to monitor and make sure that we're educating and informing the public on. Also interesting is that we also break it down in our report to look at who is most likely to fall victim to those scams, what gender might fall more victim to it. So when we look at cryptocurrency investment scams, we do see an increase in risk and susceptibility among women. And then likewise in our number 2 place with employment scams, we see men falling victim to that. And both of those are really important and really, really sad at the same time. You know, when we look at victims and who might be asking themselves, you know, should I report it, or what will they do, or what will be done? The important thing to note is no matter whether you're a victim of any type of crime, the victim is never to blame. It is always somebody else that's to blame, no matter what it is, because the important thing to note is it is a crime, and it's the criminal who is responsible. So everything that you're feeling is, you should feel validated to feel those feelings, but it's the criminal that's to blame.
I'm loving this vulnerability aspect. And so obviously different frauds create a different vulnerability profile. So a man like me, frankly, I need more money in my retirement, might be more vulnerable for this cryptocurrency because of that. So it's, my point being, vulnerability spreads is the spectrum of all humans, really. And like we position differently within the vulnerability scale. Can you kind of explain what I'm trying to say there?
Yeah, no, I absolutely understand that. I mean, the fact of the matter is, when we look at everything that's going on in the economy and communities, everything that's sort of, that we're hearing, what that translates to is increased risk. We're vulnerable as people, whether that's looking for connection, which might translate to a romance scam, whether we're looking for employment, which might translate to an employment scam, whether we're looking at a multitude of different things. The fact is, at the end of the day, we're humans, and because we're humans, we need to protect each other. So everything that we do in terms of Fraud Prevention Month and informing one another is to protect each other. It might mean that you might not get your loss back in your situation, but it can go a long way in protecting somebody else in your community.
Do you get many members of the public calling you? That I don't think of the Better Business Bureau as a place to think of for fraud. I think of the police and other places.
Yeah, so at BBB, our scam tracker report, across North America, we had over 2 million visits to our scam tracker. So not only do you report scams, but you can also look and see what scams or fraud might be happening in your area. So maybe if you're not looking for yourself, but maybe you would like to have an eye on where a parent lives or a child lives, and you want to see what scams are more prevalent in that area. There's a lot of resources that you can do, and the important thing is all of it are real conversation starters with loved ones. Don't assume that they know. Just bring them up as conversations on, I read about this or I heard about this. The more that we can normalize conversations, the more that we can keep people safe.
Would I have a question? Do you have
Yeah,
a-
we're gonna
Thank
yeah, bring my, next, please. Yeah.
Next.
I was kind of, when you brought up defining different levels of fraud, and I think of you more in the sense of audit, so I think more in terms of business. Tell me the broader big picture of auditing, like what, as you said, all these different levels. I hadn't thought of the employment scam, right? Just standing here now. I knew of it, I just hadn't thought of it. Tell me one of the levels of fraud that maybe we don't think of as much that you audit and might be a surprise.
Yeah, so for one, I'll point out that at the ACFE, we do cover all forms of fraud, not just auditing, of course, but, we have members with police, regulators, some of the organizations here today, and auditing can be a part of that. Today, myself and many of our partners have spoken a lot about the losses experienced by individuals. I think another form of fraud is the type of fraud that businesses can be exposed to. The ACFE estimates that on average in North America, a business will lose 5% of its revenues to fraud. And the median loss, again, in North America is approximately $120,000.
Shoplifting, is that right?
It could be shoplifting, but what I'm talking about is more fraud by an insider at the organization, where there might be a pressure that individual employee is experiencing. There might be an opportunity and a way for them to rationalize that. There's numbers of different ways that can occur. It could be something that happens during the procurement process, something in accounting. That's why it's so important for businesses as well to take measures to safeguard themselves.
How destructive is fraud to a business? You're able to then see it as this fraud has occurred and then witness the victimization of that company or business. What are the results sometimes that you see?
Yeah, so as the ACFE again has reported, businesses will lose, like I said, an average of $120,000, or a median, sorry. But of those businesses that have had losses to fraud, over 60% will recover little or mostly nothing of their fraud loss.
Which is generally the underlying theme of this whole thing, let's be frank. The money's gone. And then how do we deal with it? And my point, I mean, I've had it happen closely in my life, is that what we have to overcome is the shame, right? We can't even get people to the victims. I couldn't convince someone to go who was deeply struck. Okay, thank you very much. Real estate. Or did you have another?
No, that's good.
Listen, I'm a big mouth, and you know, talk to my wife.
Experience.
Yeah, if my wife saw this,
Experience.
she'd just be, "Will you ever shut up?" Listen, we don't think of real estate that often, like, because you go, you get your real estate agent and everything. What are the chances? Like, how often do you hear about someone like not really?
We get about 1,300 calls a year in Alberta about potential fraud or misconduct within the real estate industry. But remember, we regulate not just residential home sales. We also regulate property management, condominium management, and mortgage brokers, as an example. And you can get fraud at various levels in all of those industries. A lot of it, though, comes from people who are not licensed. And so we like to say, the more you know, the better off you are. And how many of us have an understanding of how a real estate transaction works, or a mortgage brokerage, how that works? So it's difficult for people to even understand to start with. So that's why we act as a resource to help people understand how the process should work in order to help them not be subject to fraud. The key, I think, from all of us is that be informed before you go in, because if you're scammed, the likelihood that you're going to get that money back is pretty slim.
Great point, though. Where would I go to find out if my agent is accredited?
So that's the RECA.ca website has a find a licensee search tool, and it will tell you who is, and well, we'll only tell you who's licensed.
Perfect. That's all.
Thank you.
All right. RCMP, please. I'm going to bang you on about here's when I think about RCs. I think about the isolation of people out in rural areas particularly, right? And maybe more susceptible and less able to get to some of the information sessions that you talked about. How do we try to get our rural people who are more isolated in, and I mean that speaks to the city too, of seniors and that, but I'm thinking more rurally in this case.
Sorry, in what context?
In providing information for them about fraud, because they tend to be more isolated and, you know, finding the community center and getting out on it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what we've done, what my provincial team has done within the RCMP, we actually have done sessions directly at community groups, going out to those communities. For example, we recently did a session for the Edmonton Association for, or the Regional Association for people that were deaf. So trying to target those niche groups and also the communities outside. The other piece that we've done is we are continuing to support our local detachments across the province. So providing education to the regular members that are out there doing the work to engage in their communities and provide the sessions, going into the schools. So there's an ongoing effort to make sure that we all across, as a provincial police force, we're supporting everybody in those far-reaching rural communities.
And you may have more tools for it organized. This stuff can be really highly organized. It's not just me on my computer trying to rip off grandma, is it?
I mean, it runs the gamut, right? It could be, there are indications that there is some sophisticated transnational organized crime that are leveraging technology overseas specifically to target Canadians. And that is the mass market calls that we receive, the investment scams that we see that are reaching in to those individuals that that may be more susceptible. The one thing that pops into my mind are the grandparent scams, which are heartbreaking. And I could tell that story if you like, or about it. Basically, a grandparent would receive a call from their grandchild saying that they're in danger or they need help, or I've been taken into custody in overseas or in Mexico. Please send money here right away. And then the phone clicks off. And so what are you going to do as a grandparent? So those are the types of scams, and they're organized. Organized crime is effectively building capacity to target these, and it's a numbers game. So you may not get one grandparent, but if you call 100 and you get $30,000 from one grandparent out of 100, in a day's work, that's a pretty good day for organized crime. So that's where the sophistication and technology comes into place, that organized crime, they're leveraging these resources to blanket Canadian society while targeting these fraud scams.
I want to jump on that because you also mentioned earlier, you know, stranger danger. But when you get involved with, like when there's AI involved and deepfakes involved, that gets, how do you prevent when AI gets involved?
This is the evolving landscape that we see, and I talk about the deepfake. What else is coming up? Voice cloning, artificial intelligence of through text messages, and leveraging that technology to make websites. And I'm not going to go into too many schemes because I don't want to give ideas out there. But the deepfake and the voice cloning is a very real concern to me, and to think about. So is this like suspicious to me? So like when that stranger danger, that sense goes off in someone's brain, like follow up, ask the questions, make sure that you're talking to someone that you know. Make sure that picture is real. So if it's a phone call, then make that phone call to that loved one, that, or ask your family members or your community members. So I think we can overcome this as a society, to educate ourselves, be aware that these things are coming, and not just coming, they're here. And then how can we arm ourselves? I use the analogy of, everybody's heard of like community safety through environmental design, right? So we target harden our communities, and that's through lighting, through appropriate fences and trees. So we target harden our buildings. We can do the same thing with our online presence, and that's going to the resources that are available to us, leveraging our partners and educating, asking questions. So target hardening our house, but also target harden our online presence in relation to these scams.
So I'm going to get back on that. We've been talking about, you know, the elders, you know, all that, but what about the teenagers? More and more they are out there exposed, and how do we make sure that, you know, they're safe?
Yes, that's again, another good question. So something that we're seeing lately is sextortion, which is I mean, keeping that I'm not going to tell parents how to, as a parent with young children, I'm very aware of this, and I don't want to say scared, but I want to be vigilant with my children and teaching them about safe presence online, when to share pictures and all that stuff, and guarding themselves, in particular in this new technological environment. Sextortion is a real thing. So these teenagers are being targeted, particularly males, to share pictures and to share things, and then they're extorted for money. So again, building that awareness, looking at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, what's available, knowing how you can be targeted will guard and arm yourself. The target hardening, again, back to. But youth is a very, very sincere and real thing that's happening. So there's lots of examples of it happening. And we just
Do you believe that the regulations in place are really ready to target the new technologies that are coming?
Sorry, do you think who?
All the regulation that is already in place, the law is ready to, is prepared and is efficiently, you know, addressing these new technologies, this new AI world that we.
I believe we have the tools in place to effectively conduct investigations and to support the public. There's a Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. There is, again, the Anti-Fraud Centre. Can we do better? Of course, as a society. Can we respond to these threats better? Of course. But that's why we're here today, right? We're bringing our partners together. We're meeting, we're discussing. The RCMPs, along with CPS, are going to be, and ASC, I think, are going to be at the Chinook Mall this week for the public to come and to talk about these very real things. So can we legislate our way out of this? I don't think so. It's an education piece, because no matter what, criminal organizations will adapt and leverage whatever they can to target us. So what can we do? We can be mindful of that, and we can protect ourselves.
Perfect. Thank
Can I
you.
just-
Oh,
Can I just add one
Yeah.
thing?
I'm going to question you already. Crime Stoppers.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I know you're ready. I'm worried about the sergeant in XMD. She was a little unhappy with you there for a minute. You didn't get her letters read. Listen, the thing, what I found interesting is you're out in the community centers. What are you learning out there with the seniors, you know, when you're out in the Calgary community centers?
Well, like the partners have said, we get out there and we talk, and seniors will actually tell us stories about what happened to them. What really prompted us to get out to the YMCAs, out to a lot of the churches, that kind of thing, to do some fraud prevention with our partners, and one of them is RBC Royal Bank and CPS, our friends at CPS. And we got going with this because one of our board members' father got taken for $30,000, okay? He didn't know about it until 3 or 4 months later, going through his bank account, elderly gentleman and that kind of thing, found out about it, right? So we know that it's out there. So we hear about those, we hear about the different scams, and so we're there to talk to the seniors in this case about how you protect yourself, you know, with your passwords and with the way you're texting things, your emails, your cyber security that you have on your computers, all of those things. That's the basis. And then make sure that you're talking to your financial institutions. These financial institutions are huge. They have huge departments. That's where I used to work. I used to work with a big outfit, and they have huge protection for citizens. And so if you lose money or you're thinking of something, go to your bank, talk to your bank, because they will help. I had a situation where I had a client, lost money, it went to Hong Kong. Well, there was a division within my company that I worked for. We tracked that down. Took us 2 months, but we got all the money back, right? So there's things can be done. So at those sessions that we do, we talk to the seniors or newcomers. We've been out to the newcomer center. You know, these things happen, so make sure you're aware of that. And if you need to, you know, get Crime Stoppers involved. If a tip comes in and there's some urgencies to it, the CPS folks can talk to you about it. We get that directly into their hands, right? So if you see something, you hear something, you know something, you know, make sure you get it into where it needs to be or get it to Crime Stoppers.
Perfect. Thanks, Wade.
You just mentioned the Newcomer Center. We didn't really talk about immigration scam. Is that a big piece of what you're getting, like people wanting to get a work permit and going through agencies? And
yeah, newcomers, they are reluctant to go to the police, right? They come from places where there may be some shady things going on, right? I don't know. I've always been here in Canada, but there are stories that, you know, folks that come to Canada, thank God they came. What happens is they get preyed upon, right? So we try to get out there as Crime Stoppers and say, hey, look, you know what? If you need to, make sure you do these things. Understand your banking situation, understand this, and understand when we bring our partners in from CPS, these are guys you can trust, right? And if you need to, get a tip into us and we'll try to help.
Even that guy?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fair. I'm just having you on. What's interesting about this thing is it's the size of the net for me, right? Like you got a shyster like me, go, no, I can get you. And you bring in these big nets, and then I read about it in the Herald, and it's 264 investors. How does that all happen? Where are we with all that? These large number ones, right?
Yeah, and there.
Say what you wanted to say amongst the group. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, and it goes back to your earlier question. So many of us are vulnerable, right? It really doesn't matter whether we're a senior or whether we're 18 and we're just starting. We're vulnerable because we are human beings, like was said earlier, and because we want to get involved. And most often, we're sold. Fraudsters love to use whatever is hot, right? So when crypto became hot, not only did it become hot from a legitimate point of view, but it became hot because it was the topic du jour, right? So fraudsters use it as that hook, right? So to your point about how do they bring us in? Well, they tell us, this is your chance to get in on what you haven't been able to get in on yet. This is your chance to get involved in something that is hot today. And they start low. And I think another partner talked about this. They start with a $500 investment. A story of a lovely woman, a single mom, right, who started. She didn't necessarily think of herself as an investor, but because she's vulnerable, because of inflation, she wanted to make more money. She wanted to find a way to bring more money into her household. And so a link came to her inbox, and she clicked on it, and it said, invest $500 and you'll get a return. And fraudsters are good. They give you a return. So you put in a little bit more because you're going to think that return is going to come, and then you put in a little bit more. And before you know it, that lovely person has drained their RESP, maybe tapped into their bank accounts. They've tapped into most of their savings because they think they're going to get a return. And then the fraudster disappears. And they're gone, and the money is gone. And because people, unfortunately, aren't reporting yet, even though, look at all those friendly people. We're here. We want to hear about these things because, particularly with the ASC, if we get called early on, we can actually take action and freeze assets. We can freeze things where it's at. But if we don't know about it till months later, unfortunately, the funds are most often gone. They're overseas. They're somewhere else. So we want people to report. We want people to check references and check the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre and all of these fabulous resources that were shared today. Also check first. I don't know if most Albertans know this, but those who sell investments have to be registered to do so in the province of Alberta. So if you ask that person who's pitching you on an investment opportunity, are you registered? And they say, no, I don't need to be. Say, no, I'm sorry, this isn't for me. Click or move away. It's part of it is being aware and just knowing, actually, I do need to only work with registered people because those are the people that follow the laws. Does that help?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome.
Anything any of you wanted to say that I didn't ask you or that might be valuable to people? I think we kind of went through
Just
it.
one thing.
Yeah, come on
up.
up. Yeah,
Just
just
to
that.
cover off what you were saying. I just wanted to bring up to Sergeant Nick, just to piggyback off what Nick was saying, that the money is often gone, and that's very really true. However, if you call us right away, and what the ASC was saying as well, we do have a chance to get it, right? Like we can retrieve the funds, and it's really important because the fact that if we don't get it, it may discourage people to report. But I want them to know that if they report soon and quick and immediately engage police, we can take action and may secure their funds back.